My name is Will Smith. I'm co-founder of the National Lynch Trust and your host for today's webinar. We have an interesting episode today where we'll highlight the Brookline Golf Course up in Brookline, Massachusetts, and its relationship with the local community, and the work spearheaded by my guest today, Justin Lawson, Brookline's general manager. Justin, who's a member of the PGA, welcome. We're really excited to have you. Justin, rather than me read off some pre-packaged bio, why don't you give us a little bit about your background and how you found yourself working here, and how you got involved in golf to start with.
Excellent. Well, it's a privilege to be here with National Lynch Trust and the opportunity to share our story at Brookline and a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Florida and grew up just north of Tampa Bay, and decided to pursue a passion and running a golf course and being a golf professional, and landed in the private club world for a good 15, almost 20 years, leading roles at Sankaty Head Golf Club on Nantucket, Dedham Country and Polo Club in Dedham, and really ran my own operation up at Nashua Country Club in New Hampshire. 2020 hit, the world changed for golf. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And the world changed for us in my family, and the opportunity to join Brookline presented itself. And I jumped at the opportunity and really got my career started actually here in Brookline as an intern at the country club. So for the opportunity to have my career go full circle and do something special for the town that gave me a lot of the start to my success in my career was just an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So been lucky to be the general manager here at Brookline Golf Course for 5 seasons now. And as you alluded to, we've done a lot of wonderful things, and the future is really, really strong here. And look forward to the opportunity to share that story a little bit more in depth with you, Will.
So you mentioned that you giving back to the town, that you sort of got your start into golf. That was a main driver. It's a big change going from a private club pro to running a municipal golf course. Like what else attracted you, or what were you most concerned about?
So one of the things, my family, the opportunity to be a little bit closer to home. We live just south of Boston, and the idea of working out of state in New Hampshire was a big factor. But realistically, the idea to serve a community in the private club world, our community is defined by the members of that club. And I grew up at a public golf course. We had a small family. I always have dreamed about being in a bigger family and having those bigger celebrations. And so for me, I really took the opportunity to pivot in my career and go to a place where I could create our own community. And it was no boundaries. There was no barriers to entry, and was really available for everybody. So to me, took those skills that I learned at a private club and really just applied them in the municipal setting. It's kind of where we are today.
Yeah. And Brookline Golf Course goes by a number of different names.
We do have an identity crisis, yes.
Well, that's interesting. I think you may have a naming issue, but it seems like, from what I gather, like there's a really strong sense of place. But why don't you walk us through a little bit of the history of Brookline, and a little bit how it got to where it is today?
Sure. Brookline, Massachusetts was really kind of the home to the birth of American golf, with Francis Ouimet winning the historic 1913 U.S. Open. So Brookline is synonymous with golf and in golf history. And for us, in 1931, the town decided that it wanted to invest in this new game that was sweeping across the nation, and they developed the Brookline Municipal Golf Course. And it opened in 1933. Golf course architects were Wayne Stiles and John Van Cleek. And, I wouldn't be remiss that this golf course is part of the town of Brookline Recreation Department. And the Recreation Department has got another cool fact to it. It's actually, the town is home to our very first indoor swimming pool. So we're really kind of at the forefront of providing recreational opportunities. And the name of the golf course has kind of ebbed and flowed over the years. Most of the locals know us as Putterham Meadows. And I believe in the early 2000s, the golf course was renamed the Robert T. Lynch Municipal Golf Course. And before my time, my predecessor pivoted to the Brookline Golf Course. So I just kind of took where he left over, and we really answer the phone to anything that anybody wants to call us. My running line is D, all of the above. So it's a great golf course. The bones are fantastic. The history, it has its challenges. Most of us in the area know that we struggle with drainage. But our future is bright.
Yeah. Well, we here at National Lynch Trust, we operate a golf course that has a naming identity issue, and that all the old timers call East Potomac Haynes Point, but we refer to it as East Potomac, but it's sort of a neat problem to have, right? Because it shows that there's these layers of history, that this isn't just a new thing. This is a place where people have been using it for almost 100 years. And what about the course has changed over those 90 plus years?
Yeah, so this golf course, as I mentioned, it's located in an area of town called South Brookline, and we are an effective geographic bowl. So one of the neat architectural features of this golden age design is when they designed this, they had this system of creeks and ditches that were all throughout the golf course. And back in 1933, the game was played very differently. It was played a lot on the ground. And so people found the golf course really, really difficult. So over time, they tried to improve playability by changing the golf course and putting a lot of these creeks and ditches in what we call culverts, or metal tubes that still carry the water. But really what that did is it reduced our functionality and ability to drain. So the golf course itself collects from this geographic bowl of about a square mile. So any rainfall that comes through here, it has to go through our golf course. So our ability to manage that drainage has just degraded over time. And so the golf course has evolved in a way where, the fairways aren't as nice as some of our other municipal golf courses, but the green complexes are spectacular. Our clubhouse is something of historic value and a great community asset. And then really in 2016, my predecessor and the former recreation director led the effort of installing a driving range. And that really changed the game for us and gave us an opportunity to have a revenue generating asset on the property that will help facilitate future improvements to the golf course itself. And that driving range is really subsidizes a lot of efforts that are going on with community and master planning and golf course improvements.
And we just like the naming issue, we understand that very well, as the driving range at East Potomac really drives the economic engine of our facilities here in DC. So yeah, it's an interesting discussion, and maybe we'll get back to it about the importance of a driving range at a municipal facility. But just to sort of set the stage, how many rounds do you guys do a year, and who are the players?
So this year was spectacular. We had the driest season on record up here in the Northeast. We didn't really have a lot of rainfall that affected our ability to operate. So we saw a record number of play, topping in just over 41,000 rounds of golf, which is still significantly less than some of our neighboring clubs around the metro area. And because where we're located really within a mile from 3 different towns. Obviously, we're in the town of Brookline, but we're really close to the city of Boston and the city of Newton. So up here in the Northeast, there isn't a huge supply of golf. So you have a lot of folks that come from neighboring towns and play golf at your golf course. During my early years, we started really charting, how much resident play we had here, and it's, averaged between 8 to 10%. And we've steadily grown that over the years. And that proved, a conversation starter for a lot of folks within town of, wow, we have a golf course here that really is only serving, 8% or 9% of the residents are playing golf there. It doesn't really reflect the residents' support of golf. We have a lot of variety of residents who play the game, but they may play golf at a different golf course. So I knew that analytic there was going to be a conversation starter.
Yeah, and just so people understand what your greens fee structure.
So green fees are really kind of more at the bottom end of our market up here in Boston. So during the week we charge $40 to play golf, and on the weekends we charge $52.
Yeah.
So it's a moderate priced experience, but in our overall marketplace, we're more towards the value oriented experience.
Yeah, I mean those prices are pretty good for being in a pretty urban area. It's yeah, absolutely. So so when you took over, what was the facilities? You've talked a little bit about the sort of numbers, the metrics of who is using the facility, but what was the relationship like with the community?
Very distant, and I knew that had to change. And when I took over, doing your due diligence of where you're going to call home and a career, and you do a lot of research, and I heard that there were certain conversations in the community in previous years about idea of consolidating the golf course to 9 holes to build a school. There's a really land is scarce in Brookline. There's a lot of need for a lot of activities. So the golf course has always been under the spotlight for, repurposing. So I knew, what an awesome, incredible asset that the town had. Now it was covered up in deferred maintenance. It was in disrepair in many regards. But the table was set, with some really good proactive planning and execution of increased maintenance. We could see the true potential of this facility. So for me, it was really to learn the community, understand its place and its opportunity, and really kind of understand the customers that were coming here, and how to start having those conversations about what is happening, what's the state of the community. And when we first took over, there was a lot of things going on at the golf course. COVID was, how do we operate in golf? So you had to kind of overcome that hurdle. I started right here at the golf course 5 days after golf was permitted to be played again. So it was really jump in with, both feet. And then we had a small little party in Brookline in 2022 called the US Open. And that was at my neighbor's golf course. The country club and our golf course share, well over 1,000-foot property line together. And over the course of history and their championship that they've hosted there, our golf course has always supported their efforts. So we had a lot of planning to do with that. And so I knew there was a lot of work to be done, And it was understanding all the various stakeholders in the community, working with our Park and Recreation Commission to understand what their goals were, what their needs were, and really kind of learning who the residents were and who our non-residents were. Yeah.
And when you took over, you referenced some planning that was already underway, right? The town had approved a master planning process that had started, I guess, when you took over, or
yeah. So I took over in May of 2020, and thankfully in December of 2019, our Park and Recreation Commission approved the creation of a master plan. Right, so they recognize that the golf course had all these, opportunities, or degraded maintenance and deferred maintenance, and so they really wanted an expert to lay out a roadmap of investment. Right, where do we invest our dollars? Because the golf course operates on an enterprise fund, so all the money that the golf course makes, it stays here. But any improvements that we want to do also have to be funded by the golf course. So this plan, this master plan, really needed to be strategic in what it called for. And so for me, it was, you know, a blessing that we had somebody at the government level, in the authority, to help guide that. And you know, thankfully, we underwent a process to find an architect, and we landed with Mark Mungeon and his team. And Mark, for those that don't know, he's done an incredible amount of work up here in the Northeast. And you know, one of his notable projects is his restoration of George Wright and Franklin Park, some of our neighbors. And so his experience really lended itself to navigating some of the municipal process, and you know, developing a design that was going to be effective and enjoyable for all golfers.
When you took over, had Mark been selected, or were you part of that process?
I was part of that process. So, you know, we were able to work with our leadership team at the Recreation Department to understand, you know, what our goals of this master plan were, as well as the commission, our Park and Recreation Commission. And we put together a committee, a design review committee. And that was really awesome because that began a public process of collaboration. A lot of us, you know, are here today to learn about how to engage the community. And that process was the foundation of those conversations, because you're bringing people in from all various stakeholders, people who are golfers, and people who are not golfers. And we're discussing the future design and the future plan for this property as a golf course, and how do we maximize its impact to the community. So it was an exhausting process, a lot of conversations, but quite thorough in its endeavor.
How much guidance did you provide about the long-term direction versus what Mark kind of came up on his own?
You know, for me, you know, I've always been known to listen. I grew up with the idea of we have 2 ears, 1 mouth, so we really should listen more than, you know, twice as much as we talk. And so for me, I kind of always knew that there was a potential that this golf course and this property could be world-class. But I also knew that this was a community asset. And for me to really get to where we want to go, I wanted to be able to listen to all the various, you know, stakeholders in the community who were going to get in that bus and we're going to drive to this destination. And everybody had an opinion. And for me, it was really important to listen to everybody, to make sure people understood, and I understood what they were thinking, what they were wanting. And we can't do everything. We have to make decisions. And then Mark, with his experience as a civil engineer, really helped create a team that could address our golf course drainage issues. You know, Mark found the golf course to be spectacular, tons of potential, just as I did. But we had a functionality problem. You know, we had to process all this water. And for those who have never played our golf course, we're characterized by hydric soils that are swampy and muck oriented. And then we also have these incredible rock outcroppings that create some high points in the property. Otherwise, it's a pretty flat golf course, and gravity just doesn't move the water you know, the way we want it to. So Mark and his team really took that on. And then my team was really focused on the community aspect.
Apologies, I got some barking dogs here, but they normally calm down in a sec.
That's okay. It's great.
Yeah, no, apologies to everybody.
We actually, we get a lot of dogs that come out here on Monday mornings. One of the first things that we did that I was able to institute was we had all this deferred maintenance. You know, as a municipal golf course, a lot of golf courses operate 7 days a week, sunrise to sunset. And so I instituted, with the support of our Park and Rec Commission, we were going to take a page out of St. Andrews. We're going to close the golf course and open it up for the community And the best day that we chose was Monday mornings. And a lot of the community really wanted something on the weekends. But for us, being an enterprise fund, we had to preserve our ability to operate and to preserve our ability to generate revenue. But Monday was really great because it gave our opportunity for our golf course maintenance team to get out there and do things that they hadn't been able to do over the last 20 years. And so we see a lot of dogs out on the golf course on Mondays and during the winter.
That's great. I'm a big fan of dogs on the golf course. It's not always the easiest thing to do with play, but I wish we would take a little bit more of a page out of the English and Scottish book and have dogs, well-trained dogs. My dogs clearly bark too much and wouldn't be welcome, but be great to have them out. So I guess as part the master planning process, it really was to address the golf course, right? It was not how do we add more uses or programming. It was strictly, we've got a big drainage issue. There's been decades of deferred maintenance. The infrastructure is degraded or broken and not useful. It was strictly golf course, right?
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, the golf course sits in this geographic bowl with these hydric soils. And in the town, listening to the Park and Rec Commission and all their constituents, there is a lack of field space in the town. And there's this desire, as part of our town values, is to, understand sustainability and, be climate friendly with our decisions. And so they really looked at the golf course for more fields. It was a natural fit for them, but they didn't understand that this property is really a wetland. It's really challenged, and the ground literally moves with rainfall. So when it rains, the fairways become humpy and lumpy. When it dries out, the fairways fall. And so the ground is always moving, and it becomes really, really soft in a lot of places. So it's not the typical ground that would be suitable for a field. So it really created opportunities to have those conversations, albeit sometimes difficult. People are really passionate in this town for what they advocate for. And we felt that this property really, as a golf course, was the best possible use for it. So people can have an active recreation and passive recreation opportunities out here. So we really looked to preserve the 18 holes, but really, how do we, maximize the use of non-golfers out here? And so, Mark and his team, Tim Garish is our landscape architect on that team, and Tim is an avid hiker. And we have on this property about a 15-acre wooded lot that is called Putterham Woods. And before the golf course was built, this golf course was a tree farm. So trees were grown here and then transplanted throughout the woods. So with Tim's, expertise as a landscape architect, the idea of trails really were kind of at the forefront of these other uses of this property. And up here, Frederick Law Olmsted, one of the greatest landscape architects of our time in history, was a Brookline resident, and he created the Emerald Necklace. So there's this desire in the town for connectivity. So we felt that is one role that this golf course could help play, connecting neighboring parks and provide opportunities for the community to get out there and use the green space and enjoy this open space.
So, Justin, you've jumped a little bit ahead in the story, right?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, it's really good stuff. But look, I think one of the things that a lot of people across the country who are big supporters of municipal golf, either have gone through or might have to go through in the future is what happens when they come for the golf course, right? And that's honestly what happened, right? You guys are going through this master planning process, and in 2022, there was an organized opposition, I guess, that wanted to look at changing the use of the golf course, either entirely or neutering it to 9 holes, which would have made it very financially tough. And so You know, tell us about that process, because I think people need to want to learn about how to organize, how to get, you know, how to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, you know, part of our public process was to listen and have those conversations. And some of those conversations, as I mentioned, were more difficult, right? And as I mentioned before, people are passionate. You know, people get this idea and they can gather. And in our town, we're governed by a form of government called town meeting. And so town meeting members got together. They wanted to pause our master planning process and have us look at the concept of consolidating the 18-hole golf course down to a 9-hole golf course. And our master plan process was well underway. We were kind of near the end. And it really kind of threw a wrench into, you know, trying to plan for the future and create this plan. And we started, you know, working on this master planning process under the direction of we're looking at an 18-hole golf course. And, you know, it was a challenge. And, you know, I think over the country, there's definitely different areas where people aren't as, you know, supportive of the game of golf. And, you know, the game requires a lot of land. And when land is scarce, people don't always support the game as they would in areas where land is plentiful. So for me, it was important to engage the community. And we had already been engaging the community with our master planning process. And the town really came together. It forced the town to make a decision whether they were going to support the golf course moving forward as an 18-hole golf course, or they were going to pivot and seriously consider going to a 9-hole golf course. And you know, that was quite the experience. And for us, we really, as staff in the town, had to take a neutral role. And you know, that was hard. That was hard. Here I am. I'm one of the most passionate people about, you know, the town's asset, that I'm trying to communicate, hey, you have a world-class golf course here. This is a golden age design. It is spectacular. It's going to take some time to get there, but this journey is going to be well worth it. And, you know, for me, it was like we were just getting going. We had just completed the US Open. And here we are, we're on the front page of the Boston Globe, you know, lead story. And it was like, what?
Right.
You know, but the
Was that the first you'd heard about it? Was it sort of the story, or was this?
No, it was the
Yeah,
lead up.
yeah,
It was like,
yeah.
you know,
People,
it
yeah,
captured the attention of the whole area.
yeah,
Because this was really the first real challenge to the game in a highly populated area. And, you know, for us, you know, town meeting ultimately decided to not support that resolution and to continue to move forward with our master planning process. But it wouldn't have been done. That wouldn't have happened if we hadn't had such a thorough public process in creating the master plan and engaging these various groups, abutters, you know, fans of open space, various friends of groups, to come together and participate in this process. And that's really ultimately what helped share the opportunity that we had, right? And they felt moved by that opportunity and to preserve it for future, right? And to see that come through.
So these groups that you had engaged as part of the master planning process, it sounds like they wouldn't necessarily be sort of the typical groups that you would have engaged for a golf course master plan. These are,
Right.
we're thinking of this more holistically. And again, I read an article where, you know, the opponents were wanted the town to look at it more environmentally responsible uses, as I think is the term that was used. But it sounds like you had done work with some groups that and started to educate them a little bit about the environmental stewardship that golf courses undertake, right? I mean, it seems like
Absolutely.
you told them a little bit about stormwater management and all this stuff that's really important for a community that isn't always associated with golf courses.
Absolutely. And, that story, those conversations were prolific, the environment, climate change, as I mentioned, is one of the core values of the town here. Everybody's very focused on climate change. And so for us at the golf course, I wanted to make sure that we had, a seat at the table to explain what the golf course's role served in that. And being, as I mentioned before, being at the bottom of this geographic bowl, right? We have a lot of residences. We have a state roadway that, borders us. And so the golf course, during times of high precipitation, it acts as a filter for the neighborhood. It cleans the water. It manages the stormwater runoff. And for us, it was important to share that role and share that story. And there's a lot of misperceptions about golf course and chemical use, and all that stuff that goes along with, people who aren't really supportive of golf. And, for us, the open space, the wildlife, the carbon sequestration of trees, as well as the peat holding some of that, carbon in, it's all one, big entity that is a bonus for the environment. And it was really understanding what the golf course does and explaining that to people. There was people that wanted to see us just become a reforested area. There was people that really enjoyed the idea of green space, and they wanted to preserve that. Ultimately, the common ground that I found with all these folks, they just wanted more access, right? And they wanted to be able to have more people use the space other than just golf. And I thought, hey, that's something that we have in common, right? And so how do we achieve that? How do we maintain an 18-hole golf course? How do we get non-golfers here? How do we continue to be a leader in the environmental world? And how do we do that? And so that's kind of what we did. And
Justin, you're amazing. You do my transitions for me. I don't. I mean, I don't even have to do anything. So let's talk about that, right? So
yeah,
we've talked about the environmental benefits of the golf course being this bottom of the bowl and helping filter water. But let's talk about the social benefits and what you did very intentionally to open up that group of users that look to this golf course as part of their community, as a vital part of their community. Yeah, let's talk about some of these programs that you've instituted.
Absolutely, Will. So I go back to my roots in private golf, right? When you're at a private country club, probably more so than a golf club itself, but at a country club, there's a ton of events that happen, outside of on the golf course. You come together for movie nights, you might do trivia night. There's this sense of community, right? And so having experienced a lot of that, I was, this is a great way for our golf course to execute several concepts. And my goal was to have a seasonal concept, right? So one event every season, not a golf season, but spring, summer, fall, and winter. And so for us, I looked at the cost benefit, right? So, most of us would shatter at the idea of giving up the golf course in season and doing a non-golf event. But for me, we could use the shoulder areas, right? So for spring, we have this event. We haven't gotten it off the ground yet just due to weather, but we keep planning it. We call it the Bloomin' and Movin' event. And the idea is to, around the spring solstice in late March, we get people to come out here. We'll do yoga classes on the range, bring out some, DJs and go out for walks and just get people out on the golf course, get people woken up for spring and get them out moving. And then in the summertime, we've done movie nights on the range. So we have this driving range. It's an incredible amphitheater. The tee is high and the terrain is pitched away from the tee. And it creates an awesome environment to hold, kind of like that drive-in movie experience. So we rent a big inflatable screen. We get popcorn. Hemlock Grill is our restaurant on property, and they do an amazing job here. And so we created these movie nights, and those were a hit. And in the fall, we actually do shut down the entire facility. And we do this on a Saturday or Sunday, and we've done it quite for several years now. It's called Harvest Fest, and it's always right around Halloween. So for us up in the Northeast, we are really constrained in late fall for daylight. So our revenue potential those days are far less than something in June. So for me, giving up a day on a weekend, it made sense at the end of October, early November. And we shut down and we hold a 5K out here on the golf course. So we have a run in the morning. And then we invite the whole community to come on out. We do bounce houses, face painting, arts and crafts for the kids. This year we were able to partner with one of our local breweries, Trillium, and they brought out their beer trailer, and we just have a great party. And we pride ourselves on our golf experience, but we also pride ourselves on these community events, and we put a lot of effort into it. And for me, I'm lucky to be here with you, Will, but I'm really surrounded by an amazing team at the golf course, and I couldn't do it by myself. And then that team extends to our recreation department. So the whole department really comes together to support the golf course and these endeavors. And then the wintertime, if it ever does snow in Brookline again, as I mentioned, the golf course is extremely flat with some, small elevated areas that make it an incredible landscape for cross-country skiing. So we have gone full bore ahead. We bought a snowmobile. It's never snowed since. Thinking about buying a boat so it doesn't rain anymore. And so we're ready to go, and we want to do a snow day where we get, horse-drawn sleighs out here and do rides for the kids, snowball fights, sledding, just really kind of create these opportunities and awareness for the community to come on out and have a good time and engage and use the property. And I find, whether it's golfers or the people who don't golf, that common ground is just getting more and more people to enjoy this incredible space that the town has.
Those are incredible. I mean, these are things that we want to work towards here in DC, and I think are really important for anyone who's in the municipal golf space to embrace and think about and try to introduce to their communities. Talk a little bit about the payoff, right? Like, what have you seen from the community about their buy-in to the facility?
Absolutely. So I think people are becoming more aware. We've had people that have grown up in Brookline, and as I mentioned, we're in an area of Brookline called South Brookline. And for those who've never been here, there's a major road that kind of splits Brookline in half, and it's called Route 9. And there's people that live in North Brookline that have never been to the golf course before. So we get a lot of people that come to our events that are like, wow, we never knew this existed. We've never been here before. And those people are completely blown away with our events, and they may make the decision to come over and have a special celebration in our clubhouse. They may come over and use our driving range. They may come over and bring friends. So for us, the community is our membership. We don't offer golf memberships at the golf course. So we really want to engage everybody so that when they make a decision of what they're going to do for their free time or their recreational opportunities, we want to be a part of that decision, when it comes time to what they do. So whether it's golf or coming over for a walk, it's really important that we curate that experience and we stay in their minds.
Yeah, how have you gotten the word out about these things?
Engagement. We started this email list called Putterham Times, and we routinely share what's going on. A lot of updates surround the master planning process. Everybody's engaged. Everybody feels that they have ownership because they're part of this community and they want to know what's going on. And we actually just got past our first round of significant permitting. So we're really close to some construction activities that would be game changing for the golf course, but it's really those conversations with all those stakeholders, Will, during that master planning process, developing relationships. What we do every day in a private club world translates beautifully to the municipal world. You develop those relationships, and you keep people engaged. You share information. You're transparent, and you develop this little sense of trust, right? And belief. And ultimately, when you have that, you have people that come together over a shared emotion. And to me, that's community. So we call it our Putterham community here. And so we stay connected. Sometimes there's no information to share, and we don't share information. We want to respect each other's busy lives, right? And so we're cognizant of when and how often we share, but we have that engagement factor. And then we're out in the community. The town does this incredible Brookline Day. The recreation department puts this on, and we shut down one of the busiest streets. And this year for me, I was able to take our master plan and get out there and bring the master plan to the community, and develop more relationships. Some people have a lot to say. Some people have some negative things to say.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I go back to my roots and I listen twice as much as I speak. And, I think people respect that. And they can get behind it. If they don't like it, they don't like it. And so that's okay. You know what I mean? But as long as we respect each other, we find common ground.
What would you say to an operator of a municipal golf course that's considering doing these type of events? Any lessons learned, or any missteps, or any words of advice for someone who wants to start doing these type of events that have been so successful for you?
Yeah, to me, it's our mission, right? Our mission, we live and breathe it. Our core is golf, but our mission is community. You know what I mean? And for us, we put as much effort into the community experience as we do the golf experience. So my message is to everybody out there is don't shortcut yourself. Don't shorthand yourself on these community efforts. People will notice, it will grow. And those relationships that you create, they will pay off over time. And just because you have one doesn't mean that you should stop. Do more. Become a fixture of that community. And your golfers, they may question it. Some of them may not really like it, but again, the impact of the golf season is so minor. Don't get caught up in revenue loss. It's really rewarding. It's really, really rewarding.
Great. Before we get to some Q&A, I guess you referenced it, that you got through the sort of first significant permitting hurdle. Walk us through sort of the next year, 5 years at Brookline.
Well, I can't wait. I tell you, one of my biggest things I had to adjust is our ability to do things expeditiously. I call it, the municipal adjustment. It takes 4 hours to watch 60 minutes in the municipalities versus private clubs. So it's been 5 years, and we're finally to that point now where we can see major construction in our future. And we're going to focus exclusively on drainage. And if we can control the water, we can stabilize our revenue streams, and we can create more, resources to invest into more of the quote unquote sexy things such as bunkers and, future green expansions, revisions, all the things that the golfers can touch and feel. But our first goal is to make sure that golfers can access the golf course. So we're gonna go hard on drainage. There's probably almost 80% of the manicured area of the golf course is under the jurisdiction of our Conservation Commission. So really anything that we do out here has to have a permit. And so we're gonna focus on this major artery that goes to the golf course. We call it our main channel. So we're gonna work on that first and then work on all the branches that go out from that. And, there's daylighting, ripping those steel culverts out of the ground, reestablishing kind of the original design from Stiles and Van Cleek with a lot of these ditches, because as you know, well, the game has evolved. People can get the ball up in the air now versus almost 100 years ago when it was played on the ground. So it also involves resequencing the golf course. Our first hole before the driving range was put in was a par 5, fairly pretty close to the clubhouse. Now our first hole is on the western side of the world from the clubhouse. So we're going to take and reposition, relabel the golf holes. So 13, which is really close to the clubhouse, will serve as our first hole. So Mark has identified an opportunity to remove one of the creeks and make the golf course and the fairway go over that creek. We're still going to preserve it. It'll be in a culvert, but the playability of that hole will improve. And then with the resequencing, it's going to be quite the change for our public golfers up here in the Northeast. It'll be spectacular.
It's great. Looking forward to getting up there and seeing the facility and seeing the progress. Figured we would open it up to some Q&A. So if anyone's got any questions, please pop them in the chat. Justin, this has been a great discussion. So before we get to that, thank you so much. So this is from Josh. I think we've established this, but he had some technical difficulties at the start. You work for the municipality of Brookline?
I am. I'm lucky to. Yes, the town of Brookline.
Yeah, the town of Brookline. It's great. And what's interesting is thinking about this is that is not working for a golf course operator, right? There is sort of more incentive to create those bonds with the community rather than necessarily just a revenue based sort of metric, right? I mean, that's not how you don't judge yourself on the revenue. It's I mean, you all want to break even, but it's really about creating a community.
Absolutely. And, I think, when we look at community, golf, it's dependent on people to make that choice to come play golf here. Right. And, the private club, you have the members, they've already paid those fees to golf. Right. So in a municipal golf course, and whether it's a municipal or a public golf course, people make that choice. And so for me, I want as big of a community as I can possibly make it, so that people want to come play golf here. And all of a sudden now you're enhancing the inherent demand. People want to be where they feel welcome. They feel that they're a part of something greater, and for me, that is how I define my success here. Have we grown that community?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can tell you some of that community is online right now, asking questions. So I'll try to get to some of them. Let's see. I think we discussed this maybe before we went live. There's a question about being open during the winter.
Yeah. So if we can be open for golf, we're going to be open. Unfortunately, we really are in touch with Mother Nature. Sometimes she doesn't listen to us, but she dictates what we do. And we also need to preserve the viability of the golf course come the spring. So we're quite sensitive. If we can be open, we are open. And if we're not and we're snow covered, we will operate cross-country skiing out here. Hopefully that answers the question there.
Absolutely. I think the same listener watcher asked about changing the 15th green to stop him from 5-putting. It sounds like it might be pretty diabolical.
So the 15th green, it's the 15th is this incredible par 5. And when you think about golf and golf architecture, how often do you find a difficult par 5 that is straight away and no bunkers? There's not a single bunker on the entire hole. The green is its defense, and that green is a homage to Alistair Mackenzie's work over in Scotland at Sitwell Park. It is a diabolical green, and our golf course architect, Mark, also agrees it's diabolical. So part of our master plan is to soften the front part of it and the back part of it to make it more playable. We'll try to preserve the characteristics of it, but it is a challenging par 5 with no bunkers.
Yeah. This is from Kevin Van Cleef. He asked Justin for this discussion, how have the golfers taken to all of the non-golfers on the course?
There's curiosity, occasional people that might be curmudgeon about it, but really, it's almost become a little bit of two separate groups, and not just in golfers and non-golfers. So it's, you have a little bit of mixing between the groups, but I think as people understand more and opportunities like this webinar to share why we're doing this, people will be more receptive to these, little interruptions in their availability to use the facility as golf.
This is a question from Paul Anderson. When you're working to establish community trust and preserving space as a way to meet many goals, how will you monitor success over time, i.e. environmental concerns, public green space, access for many?
It's, a lot of it is the conversations, making sure that conversation is still ongoing. There's still a continued connection with the community, and as well as, measuring what is our impact, how many people are coming to these events. Are they growing or are they decreasing, right? And if they're decreasing, trying to understand why. If they're growing, let's put more resources towards that, so that I would say it's for us, it's, whether or not the conversations are there, whether or not the connections are still there, and then really the number of people that are attending these, initiatives is really kind of the metrics that we use.
This is from Eric Kulimna. What was the biggest challenge in connecting with non-golfers during the public feedback process we've talked about?
The biggest challenge, I would say, bringing non-golfers out to the golf course, encouraging them to come out. Why do we want to come out, right? Explaining to them and understanding that they do have a voice, and bringing them out here. I during that public process, we had people from the garden club in town, and there was a desire to have community gardens out here, because the lack of community garden space was really restricting folks from getting out and having a vegetable garden. And so, during our public process, we made sure that as many of these community groups knew about these opportunities to come together and be a part of our process, be a part of our public process in the design review of the master plan. And, some of them took advantage of it and some of them didn't, but it was really kind of making sure that people understood that this was an opportunity. And, we had success, and we unfortunately had some, failures in that as well.
Just a couple comments. Nathan Fessler, Justin, thank you for all you've done for the town. As someone who's plays the course 30 times a year, I would love to hear more about he'd love to hear more about resequencing. Although I think we're gonna maybe you can connect with him offline on that. He says this year was a massive improvement over
Thank you.
2023. And then Courtney Lemoyne, as a regular Putterham player, I can't say enough about how wonderful it is to have an engaged GM who is equally focused on golf and community. Justin is active and present and patiently listens to feedback. He's a fantastic partner to the community, and we're lucky to have him on his team. So it's getting through. It's getting through, Justin. Let's see. Maeve Dugan, how does league play factor into the community you're trying to build at the course?
Yeah, I think league play is important. I think it needs to find a balance between non-league play and league play. League play is, really important to achieve our goals of community. Leagues, whether it's a corporate league or our Brookline Women's Golf Association, is a wonderful organization, and they provide opportunities for people who share this same emotional connection, and that's their own community. And for us, we engage that community. We want to be a part of that community, and it's important for us to support that. So finding that balance of having enough leagues where people want to join a smaller group, or having just general open play, is really important for us.
Yeah. These two questions are sort of tied together, so I'm just going to lump them together. You can just talk quickly about, well, you've talked about trying to get some of these non-golfers to the golf course and maybe converting them to golfers, and those are both adults and juniors. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of programs for beginners and for juniors, and getting them engaged?
Absolutely. So, our junior program is built on, golf workshops for our junior golfers. We do multiple workshops or clinics throughout the year. And, it's concentrated. It's, excellent instruction. And we find that a lot of the juniors that come to these workshops, they come to multiple workshops, and they come back year after year because they enjoy it so much. And now we're starting to see, after 5 years, some of those golfers graduate onto high school golf, and they continue to play the game. As you know, Will, the thing that we love in the industry, it's a game of a lifetime. So if we can introduce people and juniors the opportunity to play the game, they may not pick it up until after they're well on to their adult and family life, or they may pick it up after their kids are grown and gone. It's a game that you can play at any age. So we really, focus on junior golf, but we also focus on women's golf. We focus on DEI, equity and inclusion, opportunities to bring people of different ethnicities and races out to the golf course, because at some point in everybody's life, somebody's going to have that conversation with that person, and they're going to ask the question, do you play golf? And we want as many people to be able to say yes, and be comfortable in saying yes, because there's a lot of wonderful things that happen out on the golf course during a round of golf, and we don't want people to be shut out from those opportunities.
Just a couple more questions. I want to be respectful of your time.
Sure.
And I think I know the answer to this one. It says, the question is, does the city subsidize any of the community events, or does that come out of the golf enterprise budget?
So in previous iterations of some of these events, there has been some subsidization, but this year and moving forward, we are fully taking on all those expenses from the community events in-house, and fully support those events from the enterprise fund at the golf course.
All right. Final question comes from our friend Craig Kessler. And look, I think the answer to this is sort of what we've been talking about with everything other than the golf course. So I'll read it though. Very few of the municipal golf courses form the bedrock of the game in most communities in the United States are not world-class designs. They are mediocre at best. when the quote unquote classic design argument is not available to sell the social value proposition of a municipal save project, what sell would you envisage as a solid alternative? This is particularly true for the many par 3 executive courses that host so many of the developmental programs in the nation.
Yeah, Will, I think we were talking a little bit, offline before we started, and I understand that, golf has a variety of looks and experiences. And I think for us, understanding what your property has, what opportunities it has, and what your vision is of how it's going to be best serve the community. I think, a lot of people get into the game. Will and you and I are talking about a 9-hole golf course. I remember my very first round of golf was at a 9-hole golf course. And I think, if you can find the vision of how this property can best serve your community, make it the best. Incorporate a short course, incorporate a driving range. I think, as we all know in the industry, golf chews up a lot of time, a lot of engagement time. And, I think shorter duration opportunities for those golf experiences are a bonus. Some of our golf courses around here are struggling because they don't have that classical design. They don't have that agronomic, experience of great conditions. And I think they could transition into a 9-hole golf course with a driving range and a short course and be at that bedrock of creating future golfers. So it's just understanding what your vision is.
Well, I think one of the things that you touched on there is sort of being the best version of yourself, right? It is the
Right.
authenticity, right? It is being a place that people connect to on an emotional level rather than just providing a service. And you've done stuff like creating a really cool logo for Brookline. I know that there's a statue of Francis Ouimet and Lowry, and it's creating the sense of place that people want to be part of. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the best golf course or a classic architecture golf course. It just has to be a real place, and not just for golfers, but for everybody. So, Justin, this has been a wonderful discussion. I can't say how much we appreciate it and how much I've enjoyed it. So wish you happy holidays, and thank you to everybody for taking time out of their busy holiday season to join us on what was, I thought, a really great discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for the opportunity to share our story and our journey. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.